us. Also, of course, they have been our Director of Government Affairs, Colonel Wes Smith, retired military Army colonel, who also served in, was stationed in Great Britain, so is an expert on military affairs. But let me play, Wes, for you. I'm going to play this for our audience as well on Facebook and Periscope and listening on radio. This is what David Cameron said of what would happen or could be a consequence of leaving the EU.
It is worth asking the question, who would be happy if we left? Putin might be happy. I suspect al-Baghdadi might be happy. Our friends in Australia, New Zealand, America, and all around the world and all around Europe, they're saying it's all up to you, it's all your choice. But we'd like you to stay. We think it's good for us and it's good for you.
Al-Baghdadi will be benefited if England leaves the EU, that somehow goes to the benefit. And Wes, I think that's exactly kind of and I have a lot of respect for David Cameron, let me say that, but I think he got it exactly incorrect. That part of this vote, Wes, was the fact that the people of Great Britain said, we're not controlling who's coming into our country. We don't know who these people are. We know that al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, that is, wants to get refugee status into the UK so that they can get their fighters, their jihadists in there. And I think that this was a rejection of that. Wes, your comment?
Yeah, it absolutely was. I mean, the UK simply voted and that they were not willing to trust their national defense to the European Union.
Yep.
And NATO is the big overarching military group in Europe. And 22 of the countries that are members of the EU are already members of NATO. There are 4 that are not: Turkey, Albania, Iceland, and Norway. But most of the EU countries are part of NATO. And the last several years, as you talk to people in those countries, what they see as their common defense militarily is not the EU, it's NATO.
Right. And I think, and John Bolton said that yesterday, NATO is still the overriding factor there, and that's not going away. Let's try to grab another call quickly. Elizabeth, go ahead very quickly.
Hi, thank you, Jay,
Sure.
for taking my call. One of the statements I want to make is I'm really proud that it seems like Americans are becoming more involved and educated in our democratic system. So my question is, it's clear that in part the reason for the dissent was the immigration issues. And what is the possible impact that the new Muslim mayor could have on their immigration
So it's
laws?
the first mayor in London ever elected, a Muslim ever elected to the mayor of London. But there's an interesting anecdote. We only got about 35 seconds, but Harry, London actually, that portion of London went for staying in, correct?
Absolutely. And so the wealthy people in London, most of whom are part of the quote-unquote elite group, they wanted to remain. And so to the extent that this vote represents anything, it represents a rejection of London elites and perhaps a reversal, perhaps even a toughening of British immigration and security policies.
Very interesting to see if Boris Johnson ends up being the Prime Minister of Great Britain, who is quite a character, but also very much pro-Israel. We'll talk about that when we come back from break. Hey, we're going to go into our last round, so get your questions in. 1-800-684-3110. That's 1-800-684-3110. Got an email out, by the way, on this win yesterday at the Supreme Court. You want to make sure you open that up as well. The president was rebuffed in his attempt to overreach and change the law in the United States. You don't get to do that in Great Britain. Guess what? You can't do it here either. Back with more in a moment.
Pretty powerful and amazing stuff that is happening, because if you can't be on your knees thanking God right now that something big like this is happening, the way it's happening, it's dramatic, and I don't even know if we really know how big this decision is. We just know it's huge, historic, what happened in Great Britain, the Brexit. I mean, I was thinking in terms of how somebody described how World War II and the decision that had happened that I believe ended the war. The fact that David Cameron stepped down, and that was stunning. That the question or the response from him was that al-Baghdadi would have more influence. I'm sure that when a move like this is going to have some kind of response, okay? Just like in the United States, we know that when people oppose or in this case, civil disobedience, that once a law is put forth or some kind of decision or policy, whether it be right or wrong, does it align with what the foundational principles have been effectively working throughout the United States? This is why we understand it as common law. We know that common law makes common sense. It's simple. It doesn't have to be convoluted, confusing. And this negative impact that it's had on the lives of Americans through taxation, through this decision, and all the way down through history, we've saw how when people make a decision and they fight against it, it's called the resistance. 'Cause to me, the opposite of tyranny is freedom, and the opposite of freedom is slavery. So we make a choice. When we choose to be slaves, we understand our authority in Jesus Christ. We understand that we're going to be up against, and these are battles, so we call them battles for a reason. So it's evidence to me that you've got to believe, even when it doesn't seem believable. In this case, no one could have thought that this could be accomplished. I'm still trying to even process it myself. So this is a lesson for a lot of us, in the historic lesson that's being presented to us with Great Britain. I mean, it's a teachable moment in history.
Yes, tonight actually, it's airing tonight, so we've got a special broadcast there, kind of an update on some of the political issues going on in the United States of America. We're going to go right to our phones for this round. So let me start with Jeff, who is calling from Ocean City. He's been on the phone for a long time. Hey, Jeff, I'm going to send you a signed copy of our book on Democratic, because you've been hanging on there for almost 15 minutes.
Incredible, thank you.
Go ahead.
I'm a libertarian delegate in Orlando,
Yes, sir.
and I saw a lot of discussion about the globalists, and I think this is actually one of the events that we were discussing, and it's a great day to be a libertarian.
Well, I think, look, I mean, there is no doubt, Jeff, that there's been, and Harry, comment on this, I'll get the other comment too, there's been a rejection of globalists and globalism generally.
At least in the UK. Absolutely. This move was propelled, at least in part, by the demand by the British people for more liberty, more freedom, and more opportunity to control their own future.
Yeah, I think that's clear. And Van, the question then is, if you're a political consultant right now in Washington, D.C., or working with any of the candidates, whether it's Gary Johnson, Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, Donald Trump, what are you saying? What are you looking at here?
I think if you're an incumbent, first of all, I think you're pretty nervous. I think if you already reside in Washington, D.C., this is probably something to make you nervous. If you're talking about one of the three presidential candidates, whether it's Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton or Gary Johnson, I think it does probably help Donald Trump and Gary Johnson and hurts Hillary Clinton. But I would say this, Donald Trump is the one who is going to be able to make the case that he can win states. The extent to which it helps Gary Johnson, I think that he has to first get to the point where he can get on the stage and actually compete in a state. But if he can do that, Jay, I think it helps him as well.
Yeah, 15% to get on that stage. Julie's calling from Santa Monica, California, on line 2. Hi, Julie.
Hi, Jay. I was reading the article by Harry Hutchinson on naming the enemy as necessary, and he had named them, we have to name them radical Islam. But I think we need to look further at the tenets of Islam itself. Britain allowed millions of Muslims in, and even the peaceful ones established their own enclaves, and radical ones do jihad. So I think we have to look at two divergent viewpoints of Western and Islam.
No, I think you're look, I mean, that's the point of Harry's article, and we're starting to use the phrase radical jihadists because it's more of an army approach to this, which is how it's engaged. But I think, Julie, you bring up an important point. I'll let Harry address it because it's his article. But the fact is, that whole issue does tie into this whole British situation.
I think that's absolutely correct. And I think focusing, at least initially, on radical Islam is helpful in clarifying the nation's resolve to defend itself. And it may be necessary going forward to focus on Islam itself, to the extent that it poses a continual threat and a continuing threat to the United States.
I think that's right. Tim's calling from California on line 6. Hi, Tim.
Hi, Jay. I just had a comment.
Yep.
I don't believe this elite and the poor people voting against each other. I think this is the world globalists and those that want to stay national voting against each other, and this is the people, conservatives of America and the conservatives of the world, saying we don't want globalism.
Well, I think the issue is, I think that's not incorrect what you said, but I do think that it comes into the same factor. The elites versus the non-elites, the establishment versus the non-establishment. You use the phrase working class versus the global businesses. Those aren't mutually exclusive terms, Harry. Those are actually all pointing at the same thing, and that's kind of the thematic of the program today. This eruption is in part that.
Absolutely, and I think if you look at the elites, either political or intellectual, they have, in general, looked down their nose at the concerns of everyday working Americans and working class Brits. They've also invoked political correctness as a way to demean the concerns of average working class workers as well. So they've used political correctness as a weapon.
Yeah, I agree. Debbie's calling from Fort Worth, Texas on line 4.
And what he just pointed out was very valid, because that's really been the premise of how language and borders, language and culture, the point that Michael Savage always points to, why it's important to have borders. Language borders itself is a border in all by itself. If you study linguistics, you know that in itself. And it gets back to something more simple, common sense, something that all people can understand for most of the part. So it's obviously helpful to have something simple that where people can make rational, simple, common sense decisions. See, that's convoluted with confusing words that are maybe too big for our language. I don't care where you're at with that. It doesn't necessarily matter, but it matters to somebody with this elitist opinion. So it's really a referendum against that elitist opinionated, look down your nose type approach, which can only work for so long, okay? Because everyday people need to make everyday decisions and just keep it simple, I guess. To the point that we wanted to go to discussing the difference between slavery and freedom. You make a choice. Some people don't have the option to make that choice, but that is why you have this large populace that's saying no more to tyranny, because the opposite of tyranny is freedom. And if people choose to have freedom, then they're going to oppose tyranny. Most people know that now more than ever.
The notion of intellectual superiority have substituted for too long self-congratulations for sound policy analysis. And so the middle class, the working class, have administered the dose of reality to both the British elites and American elites. And I think that's an important message that we should never forget.
A government of the people, by the people, and for the people, Abraham Lincoln said, shall not perish from the face of the earth. And reality is, we are a government of the people, and the Brits certainly said they are too. They had their own Independence Day in a sense.
I've been out in the field report, and these are some of the images, and I just want to speak to something personally. In 2012, I had a vision of a wave that would sweep across America, and when you see things, I really believe there's hope and inspiration that comes from the Holy Spirit. That's why it's a spiritual thing. Inspiration comes from the Holy Spirit. And when you're blinded and can't see and problems consume your life, it's hard to see the good and what maybe the opening up to the reality that something good can happen, come from the bad. We can be consumed with problems and then we lose vision. We also understand that faith is the substance of things not seen. Some of us are living proof that we can confront some very difficult times and survive it too. So there's a lot to learn, and it's good to see that there's some good things that come out of some hard lessons. I don't know that's the approach I would like to think and take, but it certainly is a good start. When we change the direction in which we're going, making a decision, repenting, means changing directions. Then things begin to change for the better. God bless.